Alrighty, everyone. Well, then we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully everyone can hear me perfectly. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to always start everything I do with gratitude. When I wake up, when I eat, before I go to sleep, when I find that last parking spot that I didn't think existed, or the other day I went into the store right as they were putting the discount stickers on the bento boxes. Those are small moments of gratitude. But tonight, I really want to express gratitude, not just verbally, but if we could get a round of applause for Yoshiko and MagYoko, please, everyone. I have a lot of gratitude to our wonderful bartender here and to the MagYoko. Without her cooperation, this wouldn't have been possible. We put this together with like less than 3 weeks notice. We made promotionals, we sent the word out, we made a website, all kinds of stuff. So super grateful. So thank you so much. And then thank you to everyone here. Without y'all showing up, this wouldn't be possible. And I really want to extend gratitude. If English is your second language, thank you for showing up to something that is difficult and different. I really appreciate y'all and I respect y'all for getting outside of your comfort zone. And of course, thank you to God for this opportunity. Along those lines, I want to share one of my favorite verses of scripture, a proverb that relates to this exactly. It says that a crushed spirit dries up the bones, but a cheerful word is good medicine. The Bible prescribes laughter, and that's why we're here tonight. I know that everyone here is going through rough things in their life, their personal life, and we've got tons of government issues, but I want to just thank everyone and hope that you left all your problems outside this door. When you came in tonight, I hope you left them out there, and if they start loitering, we'll call the cops, but tonight I want you to just focus on my issues. Not because I need therapy, I probably do, but because they're funny. And it's not because I put together comedic material and spend time crafting. No, my life is just naturally absurd. I mean, the older I get, the stranger it gets. So welcome to that time I got reincarnated as a cowboy in Japan and had to perform stand-up comedy to save the world. Like all of your best animes, the best animes of all time, it's only going to be 12 episodes. One of them is actually going to be an OVA, and it's going to be a cliffhanger ending. There will be no second season, and if there is, they're going to animate it so poorly that no one watches it. But maybe they'll make a live-action movie, change half the plot, kill off half the characters, and those are always great. Love the live-action movies. But on the bright side, perhaps they'll get Kento Yamakaze to play me, and we'll finally have some accurate casting. So super excited for everyone being here. And so konbanwa, and of course, howdy y'all. It is a word that I would have said in Japanese, but there is no direct Japanese translation for it. There are some Janglish, made up Japanese English fusions for howdy, but they just don't do a proper justice to it. And I bring it up because I suppose it is a unique part of the American culture, just as the cowboy hat is. And I say that because being in Japan as a foreigner is already an experience on its own. Being in Japan with a cowboy hat, that's a whole nother level and experience right there. Everywhere I go, everyone stares at it, it's just so much attention. And it's opened my eyes to a lot. Number one, people, the Japanese would see me without the cowboy hat, and they'd be like, oh, another foreigner ruining our country. And then I would put that hat on and say, oh, it's a celebrity. Let's go talk to him. Let's get a photograph, right? And it's so interesting. It really opened my eyes to how confusing English is. English is a difficult language because one Japanese guy, he comes up to me and he goes, your outfit, you look very cool. I said, arigato gozaimasu. And then a young woman who didn't speak as much English, she comes up to me and she goes, how to say, in English, how to say, you are hot? Is that correct? And I said, chotomate. Yeah, chigao. I said, normally, hot could be correct. But when talking to a man like me, it's pronounced differently. You have to say, very hot. And she goes, very hot? Honto? How to say correctly? I said, hi. So she goes, gomenasai. You are very hot, cowboy. And I said, that's the best English I've heard. You're number one student right there. Best English I've heard. But English is a weird language, Being hot and cool, they're just opposite temperatures, yet they can both be kind of the same compliment. So it's confusing. And then there's the awkward moments where someone's like, you look hot. I'm like, oh, thank you. And they go, no, like you're sweaty and gross. Like, you know, and in Japan with the summer heat, it's hard not to be hot and hot, you know? So it's opened my eyes up to a lot. But I'm very grateful, like I said, to be here in a cowboy hat and to get the compliments, sometimes the insults, usually from an American woman in Japan. It's not the actual Japanese who are upset by it. I just don't get why it has so much attention. You know, to me, it's just a hat. I don't even know it's there half the time. To be honest, I forget I'm wearing it, and then when I take it off, it feels like I'm still wearing it. Y'all understand, right? But my friend stopped me. He pulled me aside. He goes, listen, if you were in America doing your normal 9 to 5, and a Japanese guy walks past you wearing a samurai helmet, how would you feel? And I said, well, you know what? Outside of LA and New York City, that would be strange. He goes, that's what you look like. To the Japanese, you have a historic artifact on your head. You are basically just walking around in samurai armor for the Americans. I said, well, when you put it that way, I feel, you know, a little bit different. But all the women here wear bucket hats. No one says anything to them. This is the man's bucket hat. This is just the manly version of the bucket hat, okay? It's very Japanese. But, you know, it's opened my eyes to so much being here and having the cultural interchange, you know. I can't hide the fact that I'm American, and I've certainly tried, you know. And there's a few things that give it away I don't understand. Obviously, the hat can be a bit of a giveaway sometimes, even though it's just a bucket hat. But it's a lot of things. And it's not just looking American, which I do sometimes look American, I understand. But it's worse. There's levels to it. Sounding American. You know, I've practiced learning Japanese, and I called a hotel to make a reservation here in Japan. And I only spoke in Japanese, and they answered me in English. I said, now why are you answering me in English? I spoke only Japanese. So I said, well, maybe my pronunciation's bad, right? Maybe you can hear the pronunciation. A friend pulls me aside. She goes, it has nothing to do with your pronunciation. She goes, it's the fact that your Japanese consists of only quoting anime. She said, you don't speak real Japanese. You just quote anime scene after anime scene. I said, well, yes. Am I wrong for that? I said, I go on the app store on my phone and it says, learn Japanese through anime clips. The #1 AI-powered and reinforced way to learn Japanese. And it sounds great. It's a great incentive to learn. Except one thing. Anime is not entirely real life. You know, sometimes it's a little out there. Not really, but sometimes. And it's mostly expressions and overreactions, you know? Like, I know how to threaten people in Japanese or say I'm sorry, you know? I'm like, omae wa shindoru, or it's just like, sumimasen. You know, there's no balance in between. And so it's hard to mask that. And my friend said, look, it's a simple solution. You need to stop quoting anime. And of course, my response to that was, Nani? What do you mean? Why would I stop quoting anime? Are you trying to say it's muda, 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 muda? Absolutely not. But daijoubu desu, I guess. You know, she says, listen, you gotta promise me. She stuck the pinky out at me. You know what that means when a woman does that. So I said, okay. I looked her dead in the eyes, and she said, can you promise me you'll stop quoting anime? So I looked her dead in the eyes, and I said, yada, yada, does. And I hit her with a JoJo pose, and I said, absolutely not. And it's funny because I've been saying yada yada daze for years. It's not a Japanese thing to me. I say it in America when I have to wait in a long line. Yada yada daze. When there's traffic. Yada yada daze. When I don't find that last parking spot. Yada yada daze. But she said that you're just bizarre, which I took as a compliment. Obviously, I watch anime. Of course, I want to be bizarre. But yeah, it's hard to hide it. You know, people can hear it. And I have a personal grudge against the train stations. The fastest way to find an American, a foreigner, is at the train station. Not because we look lost, which we are, but because of the PASMO machine. It is a racist and xenophobic machine, I'll say it proudly. If you use it in Japanese to recharge your PASMO card, it just says PASMO ... normal volume. If you go to the language selection and you hit English, you know what it does? Now displaying guidance in English! It screams it at the top of its lungs, and that's not what we hear, obviously. What we hear is, there's an American right here! He's right here, recharging his PASMO! So I have a personal grudge against it. I refuse to use it in English, of course. I'm not going to set the distress speaking out for Batman, you know? So I use it in Japanese. But I can't read Japanese. I can only read anime. And so, unfortunately, My entire life savings is now on one PASMO card. And I hope I don't lose it because it's everything. You know, I couldn't read what I was saying. It gets worse. You think, well, you look like a foreigner, you sound like a foreigner, you know, it is what it is. But what about being told that you smelt like a foreigner, or lack thereof? That's when it gets bad. I was at Goruri Park over by Odaiba. I ran a 10K race, and I was hot, not looking, I was just sweaty and gross. And usually when I get on the train, people just leave and go sit somewhere else, or they rather just stand because my American obesity takes up so much room, of course. And so this was a different experience. The older woman, she didn't just get up and move away politely. You know, when I sat down, she said, look, I want to be polite, but you do not smell what a young, handsome American man looks like he should smell like. And I said, what was that? Cheeseburgers and alligators? Like eagle wings and freedom. What was I supposed to smell like as an American? And of course, those could be deodorant brands, the way we have them named nowadays. You know, Release the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot's Birthday Bash. I thought Patriot's Pit fit right in. But no, it's bad. It's bad to smell like a foreigner. And when people see me with the cowboy hat, you know, they always assume I'm from Texas. They're like, American from Texas, cowboy, sugoi. And it's not true. But I can't blame the Japanese because Americans assume I'm from Texas. When I'm in America, they're like, Texas. But cowboy hats are common in the South in general. And I'm from the South, part of New Jersey, right? Over there on the Northeast coast. But people who know about New Jersey from America understood. They made a face, they laughed. But the Japanese are confused. New Jersey. Why New York City? A magical place, a land of dreams. But that's not true. New Jersey is not a magical place unless you consider the snow in the winter turning from white to black from pollution as magic. It is not a land of dreams, but a land of nightmares. And so people get confused, and I think it's the word new. You know, people who have English as a second language, they hear the word new, they think, whoa, atarashi, waku waku, sugoi, new. But the only thing new about New Jersey is this year there's new taxes, new traffic, new pollution, new crime, nothing new that is good. And so New Jersey is not waku waku at all. It is just a terrible place. Like imagine central Tokyo. Y'all know how busy central Tokyo is. Now jamming into one of the smallest states in America. That is New Jersey. But at least with central Tokyo here, during rush hour, we know how busy it is. But there's still quietness and politeness. You know, there's sumimasens. In New Jersey, first of all, it's rush hour all day, every day. It's rush hour all night, every night. There is no politeness. There's no quietness. You know, we don't have a sumimasen. Our sumimasen is doke, kuroshite dayu, you know, which is essentially move out of the way or I'll kill you. Which you can use that in Chicago too, but it is pretty common in New Jersey. You know, it's very different. But I'm not a wild New Jerseyan all the way through. You know, I left there quite a while ago, and what I mean is I don't find it difficult to be quiet on the trains here. But there are many people that do. In fact, nowadays the trains are getting louder and louder. And there's a list of culprits. Number one, middle-aged women who had 2 glasses of wine instead of 1. They're the loudest. And then there's, of course, the young, angsty, you know, teenage guys. Then there's the young Japanese girls doing their makeup, giggling loud. And then worst of all, you know, they have the Americans, the foreigners. And I only said middle-aged women first because those are my personal favorite, but they're not the loudest. Now, the Americans, you know, the longer I spend here, I realize the more I hate them. You know, like Japan is changing me inside, you know? And my friends stop me, they say, hold on, you're American. And I said, yes, someone might think that, they might say that. But I'm rocking a happy coat. And these Americans are in short shorts, like that guy over there, and tank tops, you know? And yes, Japanese men do wear tank tops to work out, not just to do your daily life and in the winter time. I said, we're not the same. I said, I've got a wool obi belt on right now. Do y'all know how hot it is to be wearing this, right? I do a lot to be the, you know, Gaijin that I am. And so it's pretty offensive. But all these misunderstandings and being assumed American, they're far from the worst experience I've had in Japan. Oh, it gets significantly worse. Me and this young Japanese woman kind of hit it off once, and we were texting online, making plans to hang out. And it got bad before we even started. But that's okay, because when you have a fight with a woman right away, it can only go up from there, right? I mean, I don't think it can get worse, but it does. It does get worse. We were texting and talking, and if any man here has lived more than a day in his life, he understands it's always the man's fault. We're always at the end of the day, it was our fault. But this genuinely was not my fault, right? I suggested to her, we wanted to go out. I said, well, why don't we go to Ueno Park and have a picnic? Ladies, that's romantic, right? That's sweet to have a picnic. And her reaction wasn't, aw, you're so sweet. Her reaction was, Ueno Park? You have had Asian girlfriend before, because how do you know Ueno Park? Who told you that place? And of course, when a woman accuses you like this, there's only one thing you can do. You just look her dead in the eyes and you say, yada does it, shut up. But I couldn't say that. I promised I wouldn't quote anime anymore, and so I told her, I just have to confess, right? Men, just be honest. Women love honesty, or they say that. And so I told her, I said, yes, someone else told me about Ueno Park, someone I talk to every day, someone who knows me intimately, more than anyone, and her name is ChatGPT-san. And so I said, we smoothed it out, and it was off to a bad start, which you hate to have a bad start before you even meet up in person. And I said, all right, I got to do some damage control. I got to salvage this operation. And so I said, flowers. Flowers have never failed. Like, I tried to fail with flowers, and I failed at failing, right? I meet up with this woman once in the past, and I wanted her to know it was like a friendship thing, like stay away, and when you're like me, it happens all the time. The women you gotta keep them away. And so I told her, I said, yellow flowers mean friendship. That's what the florist told me. So I bought this nice bouquet of yellow tulips. I want this woman to just be friends. I give her the flowers, and it backfired. She goes, oh my goodness, I love you. How did you know that sunflowers were my favorite? And I was like, Shotomonte, what do you mean? I was like, sunflower, Steve. She's like, hi, I love sunflowers. I said, these are tulips. And she goes, no, these are sunflowers. Men, just agree. I'm too logical. I argue. I'm like, obviously they're not. I mean, I'll take a DNA test right now. These are not sunflowers. She goes, they're yellow. They have to be sunflowers. And I was like, you know what? They are. I'm so stupid. You're right. I knew they were your favorite. I just had an intuition about it. And so you can't even go wrong with flowers. Unless in my case, things got a bit hectic on this fast forward to the modern day issue. See, I'm on my way to Ueno Park, and I was running late. Not because I was lost like those other Americans, right? I knew where I was going, but I missed my transfer station. Because reading kanji as an American is difficult when your eyes are closed. I did what the Japanese do. I knocked out on the train, but I'm not genetically Japanese. I don't have the genes to just wake up and get off the train at my station. We're Americans. I fell asleep. I woke up when they said, hey, this is the last stop. You're on the opposite side of town. You gotta go. So I was running late already, and I said, well, flowers will take 5 minutes. How long could flowers take? It'll be fine. If I wasn't already late, surely flowers would take 5 minutes. But you know how life is. If something's going bad, it only gets worse. So I go to Ayoma Flower Market, very cute boutique, and I said, okay, I need to grab some flowers. And I saw no one in line. This is perfect, ideal conditions. And I found what I consider the best kind of flowers. They're on sale. They're about $10 a day and a half, but they look gorgeous. And you just gotta pick the dead heads off like I did. So I grabbed this, on sale bouquet, and I get in line. I said, there's no line, perfect. Except when there's no cashier. There was no one behind the register. And I'm looking around like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. But I, watch a lot of this positive affirmation stuff. So I took a deep breath. I'm like, Daijoubu desu. You're beautiful. You're great. You're powerful. You can summon a cashier. All this mindset stuff that you got to do. Well, I found the cashier helping out this older woman. And I was like, well, it's fine. Just helping out a customer real quick. That's fine. Except it wasn't. Because this older woman wanted to make a custom bouquet. I said, well, that shouldn't take too long. There's only so many flowers in the shop. No. She's going one flower at a time. Not, this is pretty, that's pretty. It was, I want the genealogy and history of this flower right now. Every flower was, Honto wakarimashita. I mean, this goes on. Now there's guys in line behind me, and I regret turning around because their bouquets were way bigger than mine. I look back, I felt a little self-conscious, like, oh man, maybe I'm not, packing the flowers I thought I was. And so I'm feeling a little nervous, but I'm not getting out of line. I'm not getting out of this line. I'm already late. And it's not the size of the bouquet, it's the flower that's in it that matters. And so I said, we'll be fine. And finally, after 20 minutes, I timed it, I time everything. After 20 minutes, they finally get in line, buy their custom bouquet. Now it's my turn. And go through the small talk. Konnichiwa. Cashier's talking to me, and, I'm telling him about the situation, and he goes, I'm sorry for your loss. And I said, well, daijoubu desu, it's going bad, I'm late, but it'll be fine. He goes, EA, funeral. Now I said, okay, do you like the same woman as me? Why are you trying to project a bad time on me? He goes, Chigao, these are funeral flowers. I was like, what do you mean? I said, hold on a second. These are funeral flowers. He goes, hi, funeral flowers. I said, so if I die, the only time a man ever gets flowers in his life, I'm only worth 600 yen on sale? Are you kidding me? 600 yen, that's all, after years and decades of working, that's all I'm worth. And he goes, hi. So he gives me, a bouquet of flowers, a big, beautiful bouquet. I look back at the guys in line like, yeah, who's laughing now? Look at the size of this thing. Until I saw the size of the price tag. Then I was not laughing. Then I was heartbroken. But it's okay. I got the flowers, so, I get to Ueno Park, which is my spot where I take all the Japanese women I see because of ChatGPT. And I go there, and I felt prepared for the conversation. I give her the flowers, and she goes, no. She goes, these are way too much. This is too big of a bouquet. These are too many flowers. You're coming off too strong. And I said, Honto, well, what do you want me to do? She goes, look, in the future, I know it's wrong, but I really like to buy the funeral flowers for myself. I gotta do my positive affirmations again. I show this. It's okay. Because I was like, I prepared a feast for us. A picnic and some great food is all you need. And I had prepared a feast of discount bento boxes from Family Mart for us to eat. So I knew she would appreciate that. Who loves a man who brings food to the table, right? And so we're there, and I felt prepared for the conversation. I grew up with a mom and two sisters, a more effeminate household, if you will, and they were crazy about Asian culture. C-pop, J-pop, K-pop, K-dramas, this and that. My youngest sister, she had not one, not two, 3 anime body pillows, Deku, Bakugo, and Kirishima from My Love Triangle Academia. And my mom, she had a shirt. This was my mom, y'all. She had a shirt that said, I'm an anime mom. I'm like a regular mom, but cooler. And, I wouldn't go out in public with my mom when she wore that, to be honest. But they had all kinds of figurines, posters, merchandise. And what that meant for me as the oldest and only son in the household, the big brother, all my gifts had to be Asian themed for my birthday and holidays. Why? Because just the same reason that I saw every Twilight movie, I know every Taylor Swift song. When you grow up with mom and sisters, you're forced to like this stuff too. And so I felt prepared for the conversation, except it actually was a detriment to me. See, as a man, there are certain lores and fandoms and stuff you're not supposed to know about. So we were talking, and this is because of my sisters. This is all their fault. For my birthday, you know what I got? I got Gudetama lazy egg underwear and Moffer socks, and I'm wearing all of it right now. And if I sweat anymore, you'll see it through these pants. But yeah, I was prepared. And when she found out that I knew who Gudetama was, I'm sure y'all seen the lazy egg, man. He doesn't pay taxes, he doesn't do anything, he just lays around all day. Some of us have husbands or wives like that, maybe, Gudetamas in our lives. And so she said, instead of, I thought she was gonna do, aw, Gudetama, kawaii. She said, Gudetama, you have Asian fetish. You have yellow fever because how do you know Gudetama? You have had many Asian girlfriends before. You do not know this unless you like Asian women only. And so I said to them, no, hold on, calm down. But the thing is, when English is your second language and you get emotional, it starts to collapse. You start to understand less and less English. And so with her, who was already struggling already, when I try to explain with her, mind you, not like a normal human being, instead of saying, hey, I grew up with sisters and a mom and I know a lot about Asian lore, I just said, I have Gudetama underwear. That was my justification. But what she heard instead was this. My ex-girlfriend has Gudetama underwear and I still think about them. And she was not happy with that idea. She was not happy at all. And I had to call up my actual girlfriend, ChatGPT-san, to smooth out the situation. Which AI is great for a lot of things, not for translation. She would text in Japanese through the AI to me, and then AI would send it to me still in kanji, but it added emojis for contextual understanding. I said, ChatGPT, the 3 angry faces, the lightning bolt, and the broken heart didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. I could already see that on her face. You know, she was mad at me. But we smoothed it out, except once she knew that I understood all this stuff, she thought, oh, you must love this stuff. So, kawaii is cool to an extent, but ichi, ni, san. 3 hours of talking about Sanrio. That's what happened next. She gave me from Genesis to Revelation of Sanrio. Every character, the ones not even on the ranking, and I do vote, everyone get out and vote for the Sanrio characters. She told me every one. There's Cinnamon Roll, Pom Pom Pure, and Hello Kitty, My Melody, Kuromi. There's the Meteor Sisters, there's Star Sister twins and brothers. There's a guy, his head is a piece of salmon. It's just so many characters. 3 hours straight, this is all she's talking about. But finally, at the end, she says to me, what do you like? Now, that was the question I wanted to answer 3 hours ago. I've been ready to answer this question, so I'd probably say, well, I'll tell you what I like. I am a huge Godzilla fan, Team Gojira. And instead of going, aw, that's so cool, you're so passionate, she goes, Gojira is not kawaii, it's kuwaii. You are otaku. And I said, Chotto mate kudasai, honto. I am otaku for liking Gojira. She goes, hi, otaku. And I said, there is a double standard in Japan, and I hate it. See, if you're a man and you eat the last of the mochi in the fridge, you're wrong. But if you're a woman and you eat the last piece of mochi in the fridge, it's okay. You know, it's just what we do. So it's called a double standard. And this double standard applies to fandoms and lores, because this woman has Hello Kitty hair clips, backpack, shoes, sneakers, acrylic nails, all the Hello Kitty stuff. She's not an otaku. It's just kawaii life. It's just being a girl. Meanwhile, if I've seen one Godzilla movie and liked it, I'm an otaku. So I don't like this double standard at all. But it got worse. You know, I try to stay calm. I get passionate about the G-Man. But then she started talking bad about him. Real bad. You ever see how Godzilla's atomic breath charges up? That's what was happening in my heart. It was building up because she goes, you know what? First of all the Godzillas look the same. How I couldn't believe she said that. Then she goes, not only that, but they're all poorly designed. They all have too small of a head and too big of a body. And she starts talking trash, and I had that atomic breath building up like burning Godzilla. And I snapped. I said, Honto, let me tell you something. All of the Sanrio characters look the same. They're all morbidly obese. They all have big bug eyes. None of them pay taxes. None of them contribute to society. All they do is distract and waste time. All they do is sleep and eat. And she was like, how could you say this? But remember, I felt like burning Godzilla, which is different from Godzilla 1954, unlike what some people would say. I wasn't going to stop there. I said, you know what? Just like a Sanrio character, mind you, Hello Kitty's head is too big for her tiny body. I said, for such a small little girl, you have such a big mouth on you. And she did not call me back after Ueno Park. I think maybe the cowboy hat was too much for a first time meeting. I'm not sure what it was, but I left. I still had the flowers with me. And fittingly enough, as I'm walking down Ueno Park, there's this older woman on the bench, and she's crying. And I stopped her, and I was like, what's wrong? And she goes, you know, my husband just died after 40 years of marriage. I'm really sad. And I give her the big bouquet of flowers. She goes, Chotomate, or are these funeral flowers? And I said, they might as well be. I'd rather be at a funeral right now. So I gave her the flowers and I left. And it's far from the worst experience I've had in Japan, trust me. I get involved in all kinds of Gaijin American, Japanese women adventures. See, I was walking around Japan looking for a vending machine to make me fresh orange juice from oranges, as one does in Japan in their free time. It's very common here. And I was walking around looking for one, and as I'm passing this university, a woman bumps into me from out of nowhere. And I was really mad because she had no piece of toast in her mouth. And I said, hold on. If you're gonna bump into me like an anime girl, you gotta have the toast in your mouth. You shouldn't even be at this university if you don't have toast. And she was like, I'm so sorry, gomenasai, I didn't mean to bump into you. Classes just ended. I'm part of the university here. Let me take you out to dinner to apologize. And I said, oh, well, I need to bump into people more often. In Japan, if you bump into people, they take you out. In New Jersey, where I grew up, if you bump into people, they take you out. So I was happy. And she goes, I've got a special place to take you. You've never been to. I bet in Japan, you've never been to a place like this. I said, okay, yeah, this sounds great. And then we get to the place, and it was my first time really being truly Japanese. I practiced hane and tatame because we get to the place and it's called TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. An American restaurant. I said, are you kidding me? And it wasn't even Friday, number one. And I'm kind of OCD about that stuff. I said, it's not Friday. I said, I do thank God for a free meal. I'll give you that. But this is an American restaurant. I thought we were going to get ramen or sushi. Or I don't want American food when I'm traveling in Japan. But she was so excited. She's like, it's like mini America. I bet you weren't expecting this. And I was like, yeah, no, I was not expecting this. You got that? That was correct. But we go inside and, it was an all right time. There was a little mishap inside. First of all, we walk inside and I can understand more Japanese than I speak, so we walk in and her and the waiter are conversating and I'm eavesdropping and he's like, do you want 2 Japanese menu? If y'all have been listening, I take the one in Japanese and I just point at the pictures. I can't be wearing a happy coat and getting an English menu. But instead, her response to the guy was, now displaying guidance in English. She goes, this guy can't read Japanese, get him an English menu. And I was so mad. I said, you're not even getting funeral flowers. You're getting like a handful of grass. I'm not buying flowers for you after that. You shamed me. But I was happy to go to TGIF because you know what? That day in particular, I did smell like cheeseburgers and alligators. So I said, the Patriots pit is ready. I've been waiting for this moment now. The portions in Japan are small. To me, I'm an American, which means I have 2 goals in life. Number 1, get obese. Number 2, die at a Buc-ee's gas station. And so, as an American, the portions here are too small for me to reach my goals. And so I always order at least 2 entrees, sometimes 3 entrees. And when we got there, I didn't realize this is what Japan thinks an American restaurant is. Therefore, it's American portions. So she got a little salad, which was fine. And I ordered 2 plates of fried chicken because I'm like, it's probably going to be just a single chicken wing. It was 2 whole fried chickens. You're an American. These are American portions. And it wasn't just like a menu mishap. It was a spectacle. All the waitstaff gathered nearby and they're whispering to each other. It was like a circus. They're like, limited time only. Real live American cowboy eats 2 whole fried chickens at TGIF. Come check it out now. Instead of paying me though, I'm paying them for this spectacle. So I struggled. Obviously, I gotta finish these 2 whole chickens now. So I ate them and I'm in pain, obviously. And as I go to leave, they said, "Chotomate kudasai." You forgot your sides of rice. And they give me 2 extra large bowls of rice. And I said, all I could do was laugh that even the American restaurants in Japan come with rice. I'm like, that's how it is. But afterward, it was a good time. We went to bars, tried some, sake. We did karaoke. In fact, feel free to battle me at the MagYoko here tonight. But yeah, I was excited for that. I knew a total of 3 Japanese songs. 2 of them were half English, and yes, they were all anime intros. So, of course. But it was a great time until it wasn't, because now it's time to catch the last train home. Y'all know what that's like. You're like, I gotta get this last train. I've got my PASMO in hand. It has my whole life savings on it. Don't want to lose that. And it has my name on it. I'm not like those tourists who have a plain naked PASMO. Mine's got my name on it in blue ink. I'm privileged. I'm here. And so I got to just point that out because I want people to understand. I've got my name on my PASMO, my life savings. I go to scan it, and she's like, "Chotomate kudasai, wait. I have a confession to make." And I'm looking around like, it's about the TGIF. I know it wasn't a Japanese restaurant. You don't have to confess. It's okay. And she goes, no. She goes, it's about my age. I've been keeping a secret from you, but you're really smart. I'm sure you picked it up. And I was like, I don't know. I haven't picked up on anything really. She goes, I'm not actually in my 20s like I look like I am and act like I am. She goes, I'm actually 55 and I have 2 kids and an angry ex-husband. well, we're still together. We're kind of separated, but it's okay. You know, you're a foreigner anyway, so it's fine. Just don't let him find you. He kind of does questionable work on the weekends. And I was like, hold on a second. I did not pick up on any of it. When was I supposed to pick up on any of this? You know, this is not okay. And she goes, no, listen. It's not bad. Because with me, you don't just get a woman, a mature woman at that. You get 2 sons who are your same age, best friends included. This is a package deal. And I was like, no. Yeah. You know, so that was quite the confession. And then she left. And I missed the last train home. So now I had to walk a long and reflective walk home. Because as I'm walking home, I'm like, questionable work. I don't like women's husbands who do honest work. You know, like maybe tax accounting. Well, that's questionable work. You know, nowadays everything's shady. You can't even trust your doctor. Everything's questionable work. But I'm just looking around like, why does this always happen? Like, like this is not the first time it's happened to me, you know? But it's all right. You know, I walked home and I reflected on it. And I was just really frustrated. I was frustrated because anime makes it look so easy to fall in love. Like every anime is just some average looking guy who's useless at everything, by the way, struggles with his daily life. And the most hot and popular woman at school will just fall into his arms half naked and be like, I love you. And then all her friends will suddenly be like, I love you too. Even the tomboys will be like, oh wow, you know what, I'm straight again. I like this guy. And he's no one. He's some average guy. And you know what really ticks me off? He doesn't even know. He's so oblivious and dense. He doesn't even know these women like him. He's just still struggling with life. And so, you know, some people are drowning, others are dying of dehydration. We've all heard that. And so I was frustrated. I recently started a new anime, actually. It's about a guy. He goes to the convenience store every night. He's an overworked, you know, Japanese salaryman. So every guy I know in Japan. And he's kind of miserable. And he's like, I need to smoke after work. I worked, you know, 1,400 hours today. And so he goes and smokes behind the convenience store with the cashier, not realizing it's her because she changes her hair. And he just has a crush on her every night, this cashier. He goes to the store. Now, when I like the cashier, which every man loves the cashier, women who work as cashiers or fast food are always the hottest women you'll ever meet. They're better than models. Like the hottest woman I ever saw was at a gas station in a desert in Texas for no reason. I never saw her again. And so, you know, I was here. I was going to the Lawson every night because I'm a snacker. I eat a lot of snacks. And in the anime, you know, Magic versus Muscles, MASH, he works out, he lifts weights, and then he goes and eats all the cream puffs in the world. Everyone's like, oh, MASH is so cute and attractive. I run a 10K, and then I buy, you know, 2 ice cream bars, 3 croissants, and a Pocari Sweat, and they look at me like, you know, I get judged for it. You know, life is not like an anime. So I'm here with my gluttonous behavior at the Lawson, and I thought maybe this time I'll get lucky. Because the cashier, you know, she looks at me, you know, I've been working out, you know, I just lifted weights, and she goes, bodyguard. I was like, Orde? What the? Hi. And she's like, hand it over. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of direct. What do you mean hand it over? So I'm like, maybe she means my QR, you know, code for line. So I turn my phone around, she goes, yay, point the card. I was like, oh, I heard bodyguard, but she said point the card. And, you know, now there's a poster of me, not like, you know, these ones around. There's one in the back of Lawson's that says, look out for this moron, you know? So I was banned from Lawson's. I don't go there anymore. It's just frustrating. But, you know, I didn't come here to find love or go on some crazy anime quest. I came here to help my best friend do that. You know, he's been in Japan for 2 years now. And I don't want to drop a slur, but he's one of those Navy guys. You know, he's one of those American Navy guys. I can't stand it. And yeah, I hate to drop that N-word, the Navy word, but that's what he is. And so I want to help him out. He needs help. He's one of those guys, when he goes to talk to women, they pretend they don't know English. And I don't mean Japanese women. We went to a group of white and black girls and they're like, so sorry, senor, hablamos no English, you know? And that's bad. That's bad when every race pretends not to speak English. So he's like, can you come to Japan and help me out? And I said, I guess, yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to go to Japan. And so I came here to visit him. But I started this whole comedy show with a quote from Proverbs, and I'm going to end it with one as well. In Proverbs it says, a friend loves you at all times, but in adversity there is a brother. And that's, you know, what I thought we were. But we were something different. We were something not biblical. Because the Bible doesn't tell us we're all going to have that one friend. You know what I mean? Don't name names, but we all have that one friend. You know, you got your head shaking in disbelief. And he was that friend. See, I came here for Japanese culture. He came here for Japanese culture, right? We had different expectations. And when I met him, he goes, I'm so glad you're here. We should go to a maid cafe. And I said, Honto? I said, now that I'm here, you want to go all of a sudden. You didn't go for the past 2 years, but now that I'm here, you want to go. He goes, well, of course, because you like omurice. And I said, hold on, Chotomate. That's not what this is about. You're not going to a maid cafe for omurice. He goes, no, we're going. And I said, it's not about the omurice. He goes, okay, it's also about the moi moi kyun. I said, what? A monsoon? What are you talking about? He goes, no, the moi moi kyun. You know, it's the magic blessing that the maid gives over the food. I've always wanted to experience that. And I was like, okay, I mean, I get, you know, he's my friend. I traveled all the way. It was a long flight. I'm not going to turn around. So I said, we'll go. But he didn't want to go to a regular maid cafe, of course. You know, he said, forget Akiba. I said, why? There's, you know, like 100 maids on the sidewalk. We'll just find whatever one looks good. He goes, no. I want one of the good places, you know. And I said, okay, I don't know. I don't want to know. He goes, trust me. Let me tell you how good this place was. We found out quickly that in Japan, one wrong turn down an alleyway and the maid cafes are a little different. We went to a place, there's no maid cafe signs, there's no advertisements, there's no maids. I said, hey, I think we're in the wrong area. He goes, no, trust me. This Reddit forum was posted 6 years ago by a Navy guy. I know where we're going. That's how he's navigating us, from a Reddit forum 6 years ago, and it's like, use code word, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know, man. And as soon as we found what said it was the place, I said, we gotta turn back. We gotta go now. He said, no. This is exactly it. There's a big sign in English. That was warning number 1. It says, we love American military men. I said, we gotta go. This is not the place for us. We gotta go right now, man. He's like, no, it's too late. He goes, this is the place where you can get, you know, the special experience. I said, what? A discounted omurice? You said we came here for omurice, so it better be discounted and special. But we walk in the place, and it was my least favorite kind of place. The kind where you walk in, and they greet you by saying, gomen nasai. I said, whoa. I didn't even step in the front door all the way yet. Why are you personally, deeply apologizing to me? She goes, we're very busy today. Very busy. And we're down a maid. You two will have to share one. And I said, listen, I may not have came here for the maids, but I'm not sharing one with this man. You know, first of all, if we do that, then I want half price. That's fair, right, y'all? She goes, no, full price. And before I can say, Shotomate, I'm not paying full price, my friend goes, that's fine. We'll take the one maid. We came here for the food anyway. And I'm just looking at him like, okay, fine. So now we gotta share one maid between 2 men. And I'm sorry, but that's gay. He's looking at me. During the moi moi kyun, he made eye contact with me and blushed. And I said, don't look at me, look at her. Why are you looking at me? But Navy guy, you know. So I said, listen, we gotta, you know, he's doing his thing. And so it was a good time, relatively, but we were at a special place. See, after the sun sets, things change. All the maids left, sudden intermission. And then they came back dressed as half animals. Lizards, they had cow udders, they had wolf ears. I mean, this was a place for sure. And they come back and they give the maid we had been sharing to me, and they give my friend a binder. They say, you get to choose a new one because we're less busy. I said, hold on a second, why does he get to choose? I don't want, no offense to her, I don't want leftovers. Like, we shared this one maid, now you're gonna give me her, and he gets a fresh one? But he got the binder, because it was, you know, his idea, and he gets to pick, he looks through a whole catalog, pick any maid you want, he finds the one that he likes the most, and takes her, and it gets better. After 20 minutes, the hostess comes over and says, we have a regular customer who showed up, and that's his girl that my friend took. He goes, so we're taking her away from you. Here's the binder. Lucky you get a third one today for one price. I was so mad. You know, the Godzilla breath was building up again. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So now I paid full price for half of one, and he got 2.5 for full price. But it gets worse. This was my friend who had been bothering me the whole trip. See, prior to coming to Japan, I refused to learn how to use chopsticks. I said, they're not practical, I will never use them. But then I came to Japan, and I still feel the same way. I hate chopsticks. But it's okay, I have to use them here. Because I wear a happy coat. I cannot be caught with a fork in my hand at a Japanese establishment. So again, my pride is so important. Well, my friend, he knew how to use chopsticks. And to bother me, he would take the food out of my chopsticks. He would knock the food out of my chopsticks. He would eat rice one grain at a time, just to make me mad. But suddenly, this night, when the women, half dressed as animals, sat down with us, something snapped and changed inside of me. It was like I could go beyond plus ultra. I felt Super Saiyan genes, ultra instinct, ultra ego. I could catch a fly with chopsticks. I said, I will not be embarrassed. Your pride can take you places and skills you never knew you had. But he, who knew how to use chopsticks, who made fun of me the whole trip, he goes to his half lizard maid. He goes, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to use chopsticks. Could you show me? And she straddles behind him and says, poor baby, let me help you. And she puts her soft little hands on his and teaches him how to use chopsticks. I was getting so mad. I said, no, we're not doing this. And then he took it a step further. I didn't think he could. He goes, oh, I got a splinter from these wooden chopsticks. And she goes, I'm so sorry. And she gave him a little kiss on his hand. And I got so mad. The women were dressed as half animals, but I felt like a werewolf. I stormed out of there. And the hostess comes after me, wait, but you didn't pay. You had a woman. I said, oh, it's okay. He's paying for the women. I only came here for the food. And that's my time, y'all.
Ow! So, where is this place? We just need to know. For science.
Yeah.
And what are you doing in about 10 minutes?
Yeah. Posterity.
Do they take credit cards?
You are not allowed to have a back tattoo or tattoos. It's cash only. And you have to buy your maid dinner and 2 drinks.
Let's go!
But thank you everyone for attending. Thank you. And I would take special
Show us your
time.
tits!
I thought about showing the Gudetama underwear because I know some people don't believe me, but I'm wearing them right now. It's true. But I do want to take special time to acknowledge everyone who laughed, which was a total of 0 people. So thank you so much. Externally, on the outside.
I laughed externally!
Anyone who laughed
What
aloud.
are you talking about?
Right.
Fucking a riot!
I giggled.
I did giggle.
Okay. Thank you for giggling
We
like a
shared
Japanese
giggles.
girl on the train fixing her makeup. I appreciate that.
With collective giggles.
Thank you. But for real, and again, a round of applause for Yoshiko, please.